Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdist Dave, and today I'm joined by Jezi. How are you? They can't hear you though because I didn't unmute you. Now you may speak.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. If I was any better, I'd be twins. So Jezi, you were a writer, and I kind of encountered you on Twitter. You're generous enough to retweet a lot of our stuff. Thank you. Uh, and I was also kind of interested because you do some blogging, which is a bit of a passion of mine because that's how Nerdarchy kind of started in the beginning. And recently, you began writing for us, and you're also working on your own novel right now as well.
Yes, yes. Writing is kind of one of my, I didn't realize I liked it until I started.
Yeah.
So it's been fun.
How long have you been
And
writing?
um, I have been writing on and off. I've played Warcraft since a month since it came out.
Yeah.
And I started doing WoW blogs and for myself, and then ghost writing for other people. And some of the major sites and just doing guides and things like that. And then I started playing Sims and I started making magazines, like fashion magazines for Sims. So that's kind of how I started.
That seems
So
very
it's
super
been,
niche.
yeah, it's weird. And like if people saw, like, I think my cousin's there in the chat and she can vouch for me here. If people saw how I dressed on a regular daily basis, they would be just terrified. Um, because like my real life sense of style does not match anything I post.
Yeah.
Like not at all. It's it's a little fantasy world to be, I guess, a fashionista.
Well, I mean, there's
But
nothing wrong with that. I mean, you know, as gamers, isn't that what we do? We live in these fantasy
yeah,
worlds where, I mean, I may play a barbarian in a game, but I don't dress and act like one in real life. Well, depending, my wife
maybe.
may beg to differ on that, but uh, but for the most part, right? We don't do the things in our real lives that we do in the games. That's why we play them, kind of like to escape. What is the draw for
Yeah.
you with that? Like,
Um, I like creating. Like I feel like I'm a creative person, but I cannot draw. I've tried so many times. During the pandemic, my husband, my son, and I, and a couple friends started like this art club. And like my whole reasoning for joining it was to try to get better at drawing. But I've tried since high school and I don't know, it doesn't work for me. But I've done photography, writing, and writing for me specifically is like super challenging. I am dyslexic. And so it makes it even more fulfilling when I finish something. So it's it's a good little mini journey every time.
yeah, the first article, I'm gonna actually add it to the description so people can
Yeah.
check it out. That you sent over to us. I read it and I thought it was really good, and then I sent it over to Doug that manages the website for us and as our content director, and he then took a look at it, and he said it was really good, which I consider high praise because I'm kind of a moron, right? So like I like to like things, and so sending
Yeah.
it so me saying I like it doesn't mean as much, right? But when Doug is like, oh yes, this is
Right,
really
right.
good. This is something I wanted to see. I would like to see on the site. I consider high praise, and it's different too,
Oh,
right? So that's what I enjoy
yeah.
about it. So you wrote.
Well, and what's weird, what was that?
I was just gonna say you wrote an article about basically fashion and D&D.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's odd because like I think my interests, like even gaming, like Warcraft and Sims, and especially D&D, like what I find exciting isn't necessarily what a lot of other people do, but I think there are elements of it that can apply for everybody. And it just kind of makes it a little more fun, like for RP purposes. Like, I think in my article, I made a wizard named Ron, and my husband swears now that's going to be his next D&D character is
Yeah.
Ron the Wizard. And he
Prophetic.
might even just say, I'm Ron the Wizard. And I'm like, no, that's not how you introduce your character. Like, I mean, I guess if you really want to, that's fine. But
Also, I'm guessing it's your cousin that says there's no shame in rocking some sweats and a hoodie.
she knows. She knows. Yep.
Oh my God. Salander says, so Nerdarchy dug it. Ugh, that's terrible. Ted would greatly appreciate that.
That's fun. Yeah.
um, so Ron is going to be your husband's next wizard.
I think so. He kind of leans towards wizards anyways, like in any game. But we need to start playing soon. Like, I haven't played for a few months and I'm like already contemplating like, well, who's going to run it? Like, we argue about who's going to run the game, like
Yeah.
between like 3 or 4 of us. And because we all like to play.
Yeah.
And like my core group of players that I play with, they really like to RP. So, and like explore whosever world it is. Like sometimes we don't even get combated. Which can irritate some people, but that's okay. We have fun doing what we do.
Well, it's always like group specific, right? So it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
generally we'll do like one combat a session. So we're not, I wouldn't say we were combat heavy. Most of our group is good with, just RP and role playing. For me, I don't care as long as there's stuff going on, right? Sometimes there's
Right.
like no combat going on and there's RP going on, but there isn't necessarily things going on. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to have what you need is drama and tension throughout a session, right? And you don't need combat for those things. That can be an expression of them, but it doesn't have to be. So, do you usually find
Yeah.
yourself at being the dungeon master, or playing?
I kind of do both. I focus more on story heavy and like lore heavy and like to make like a puzzle for everybody to unlock. But then I have the problem of spoiling it for my husband and like one of my friends where I try to tell them everything because I'm excited. So then out of the rest of the people, only 2 people don't know what's going on.
So what you need friends or confidants that are not involved in your games in order to talk to about them. But unfortunately, I think for a lot of us, like the people in our gaming circles tend to be the people in our games.
Yeah.
Which can make it.
Well, and you just want to tell them because you're like, oh, this is going to happen. I'm like, thanks for ruining it. Like, you could go down this way and get this, or you could go down this way and get this. And oh, thanks.
So Brian wants to know any off the wall ideas for magical clothing, living insect pins, dragon scale eye patches.
Oh man, you can go like living insect pins. Like one of my favorite items in all of the everything is the bag where you pull out the little woolly balls and throw them. That sounded really bad. Sorry. We're PG-13, right?
Yeah, ish. If you want to talk about sacks full of woolly balls, that's on you.
And they turn into critters. Not those kind of balls, but they turn into animals. And I forget what it's called. But like insect pins, you could totally go places with that. Like you could have like some giant spider or praying mantis. Like when you say kind of like the little figurines. We had in one campaign, I got an elephant figurine and the magic word was Horton. And I would throw it and it would turn into an elephant. And then it could carry on my stuff and it come back, or we could ride it.
But it's like a bag of beans, right?
Like, I don't know what that's called. There's like different ones though. There's
the different
like
colors.
A woodlands one, a jungle one, the epic one.
Oh no, bag of beans is something completely different. That's another thing. It's like bag of tricks. Is that the one with the animal? Yeah, bag of tricks.
Yes, a bag of tricks. That's it. But there were like there was like this random salesman that we found in one campaign. So all of us bought a bag of tricks except for like my husband. So like it was my dad, my friend Trisha, and I, and I think my friend Brian, and we all had we all had a different bag of tricks, and it was just ridiculous because we would be like chucking these little fuzzballs, and the DM would like,
spamming with them.
Yeah, he was like, this was such a small percentage chance encounter, and you guys found it. Like,
so your parents game as well?
It was fun. My dad does. My mom hates board games.
Yeah.
As my husband doesn't like board games, but he likes D&D and like video games. My dad and I and my son are 100% into board games. My cousin who's in chat, she's board games and D&D as well. My brother, same way, just super, super into it. My brother really likes card games, like the Exploding Kittens and things.
Yeah.
For Christmas, I think Mike and my son know this because they're probably watching, but I found this, what do you call it? It's like a Kickstarter game called Farting Frenchies, because I'm super into French bulldogs. And so are they, and we have one. So I got this game, and it's a card game about stinking people out or stealing the dogs. So
I got both.
I would say we're into games. Yeah.
What is your favorite board? What is your favorite tabletop game?
Tabletop game, I really like the board game Dungeon, the D&D one. I don't know. I'll take a picture of it.
I don't know. I can visualize it in my head, but I don't know that I've played that.
It's really like my son started playing it when it first came out. I think he was like 6 or 7, and it was something that he could play.
Yeah.
It's not really.
It's more recent though, isn't it? It feels recent.
Yeah, like 2 years. Yeah, he's only 8. Sorry, I drank too much tea. I'm like, but anyways, so I like that one. And then like, as far as like card game tabletop, I like Trailer Park Wars, the little stealing of flamingos.
Oh no, I've never heard of that. That sounds great though.
Oh, it's my brother got me started on it. It's a card tabletop game, and basically you win when you have the most flamingos. Like all the flamingos are out of the bank, and whoever has the most flamingos in their trailer park wins.
That was always my mom's threat, is to put flamingos in the front yard.
Oh, it's happening here. I have a big front yard. Like my mom keeps threatening to like write when I turn 40 in flamingos, and she probably will do it.
And you'll have your flamingos.
We did something really mean to her. When she turned 40, we put or maybe 30, because she's pretty young. She had me before she was 20, so so for a grandma, she was pretty young. And she's probably watching, so she'll like that. But we wrote Diane is 50 in the snow in front of our house, and like everybody knows where we live. So they're like, oh my gosh, you turned 50. She was so mad. So mad.
If you can't enrage your parents, who can you enrage though?
Right. So she was like, payback's coming.
So did you get your dad into gaming, or did your dad get you into gaming?
Board games were always like a big thing. Like when we used to do like humongous Thanksgiving dinners at his mom's house, my grandma, we would always play the game of life or Clue or something. Like Stratego was another one. And like my grandma used to have all these classic board games. So anytime we'd go over there, he'd pull one out.
The Muggle games.
But I got him into D&D. Yeah. Like he had never played D&D, and he likes fantasy and history, and he wanted to spend more time with us. So we're like, you know what? Everybody likes you in the gaming group. Just come on, and we'll help you make a character, and we'll get you into it. And he loved it. So
how old was your dad when he started?
Oh man. Probably almost 60.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Or maybe late 50s. So, but he's super into math. And he's one of those people who can just do it all in his head. And So he caught on really quickly. And he was able to make some really good characters. And we started out with tunnels and trolls. So it was a little easier.
That's definitely a cool thing. Neither of my parents have ever gamed. What does my dad say? What does he call? Oh, that nerd shit. So,
My mom used to scream when we had our little nerd meetings.
yeah.
She'd be like, nerds, and walk away because she would babysit while we played.
Yeah.
And I think she was just jealous because she couldn't play.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so. We'll get her eventually.
Yeah, you might. I mean, my wife just started gaming recently. There's been a couple forays, but we were together for like 20 years before that even happened. 20 plus. So there's always hope that it'll kind of like absorb in through osmosis.
Yeah. Well, and I think people see how much fun everybody's having, like in the group.
Yeah.
And they're like, huh, maybe I should try that.
That's why streams are really good for getting people into games, I think, is because when you see other people having fun and it's like, oh, I want to have fun too. It's a much better like entry point than being like, oh, you want to play this fun game with us? And you drop like 50 books in front of them. Just read these.
I have to read what?
Yeah,
and I think that's why Tunnels and Trolls was probably like the easiest to start somebody on. Like,
I've never actually played
lots of homebrew.
Never actually played Tunnels and Trolls.
Super basic D&D is the best I can. Very limited.
Like OSR type stuff. Like the red box.
Yeah. But it gives you enough to have rules, but then you can it's good for stories.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it doesn't, that part doesn't matter so much. It's like complexity doesn't automatically equal good.
Right.
I like a lot of like one page simple RPGs, and as I get older, the more I would rather play something like that. And it's also like so much easier to bring people into a game like that when like you can be like, here, your character fits on this index card, or the only thing you need to know about making a character for this game is which boxes you want to check for like something like Monster of the Week.
Yeah. It's, I think for like making characters, sorry, I had like an allergy.
It's okay.
For some reason, my allergies decided to start now. But it's and that was the first campaign I DM'd. So having the less amount of rules and kind of exploring where I wanted to go it was a lot easier.
Yeah, it's easier, especially if you're like a more narrative group. It's easier to lean on that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes an excessive amount of rules and mechanics can get in the way and convolute the narrative.
Well, or I think as you get better and more experienced, the rules are fine. But like as a new player, like my first experience with D&D, I played with a very narrow metagamer.
Yeah.
And it was a total like, what? Like, what did I just get myself into? Like, the dictator of D&D. It was.
That is definitely a different kind of experience.
Yeah. I was just like, is this always how it is? And my brother's like, no, it's just him. Just no. We'll do our own game once we finish this campaign. Just finish the campaign. You'll have a little bit of fun. And I had fun because I was with my friends, but I was just like, this is a totally different side of this person.
Yeah.
Like,
were they the GM?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, whoa, power issues.
Yeah.
Like
old school gaming was very much kind of like that. And like there was always like a agnostic relationship between the players and the GM. And for most of the GMs I played with early on, like, but the better ones had like their own like code of honor that they had to follow. So.
Right.
But it was still kind of like that. And actually that was one of the barriers for getting into gaming for my wife because she was under the impression that like it's the players against the GM, and like
Yeah.
it was really hard for me to explain. No, that's not really how it works or how it's supposed to work. You all kind of play the game together.
Yeah, yeah. Well, or like I kind of look at it as like you're unfolding a story all together. And I mean, because a lot of times if you have an open world, you don't know what's going to happen. The players
No.
kind of drive that. And I think it was just I needed to find the right type of players that I wanted to play with was all it was. Like 'cause some people really like that, and they like the conflict and the playing by strict rules. And if that's what you want, I got a guy for you. But
Yeah.
if it's not, it's like whoa. Like both my husband and I were looking at each other like what?
Yeah, yeah.
Like okay, well.
I-
And I of course made the mistake of playing this person's favorite character too, and I did it wrong.
Oh yeah.
I made a cavalier elf, and cavaliers are only supposed to be humans.
Oh, how dare you? We had it. You know, we had one of our early GMs, and like the two worst things were like if he liked your character, really liked your character, or if he really didn't like your character. Like the
Then
sweet
you just
spot
killed
was
it.
like to fly under the radar.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
if
Which that was my husband's character. Definitely was the fly under the radar. My brother's character was super liked, but had like no abilities whatsoever. And like, and that's something like about my brother and I. We'll roll like if we want to roll something. Like I'm like I want to roll a druid, but I don't get the numbers. I'm still doing it,
mm,
and I'll just make it work. And he had like I don't know if it was a rogue or a fighter that just had like crazy charisma, and that was it. So he was a politician. Um, and
that could
then,
work for
like,
sure.
what infuriated him, back to our little fashion article, I had a pink lance. We got
Okay.
to pick one magical weapon, and
Uh,
my magical thing was I wanted my lance to glow pink.
and that
And
infuriated
that
him.
was, yeah, I was like, this is ridiculous. We're going to keep going.
Yeah.
Like,
DM is taken down by the pink lance. How long have you been gaming?
oh man, probably 15 years for D&D.
Yeah. Ooh. How old were you when you first got involved in gaming?
Oh, that's gonna date me. We don't publicly say how old we are.
That's true. That's true. I'll let you slide on that
Yeah,
one.
I've been
You could give
I've been
like
28 for a long time.
yeah, yeah. You could give like early 20s or teens or
20s. There's a generic.
that is a generic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're an adult. Well, you I mean you're an adult when you started playing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because
Yeah, and like oh no. I was gonna say my first experience was it was just playing with one other person. Um and we lived out in the middle of nowhere, so we didn't really have anybody else to play with. So we just
yeah, that
the two of
that'll
us.
do it. That'll do it every time.
Yeah. And the internet stuff wasn't as like WoW was online, but there wasn't Discord. I think there was like Ventrilo and TeamSpeak, but
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah, I mean, gaming now is a lot different than it was when I started because like there was no internet. There was barely when when I started there was barely video games. Like it was like Atari and ColecoVision. So and it's like a lot of my friends had Atari. My more fluent friends had ColecoVision, but and ColecoVision was slightly better, but it just didn't stick. And I
I
may
don't
or
even know what that is.
that's what I was going to say.
I'm
I
like,
was like,
I don't know.
do you know what Atari is?
Yeah, I know what an Atari is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. ColecoVision just didn't stick. It was just like a slightly better version of Atari. Uh, and I remember going to my friends and playing Zaxxon.
Yeah, we
Um,
had a Nintendo,
yeah,
which my
that'd be
mom,
many years later.
oh man, she got us good with that. She would say she rented it
Uh-huh.
and bring it out. Like if we got good grades, we got to rent the Nintendo.
Uh,
Come to find out, 2 Christmases later, it was ours.
yeah, that was pretty slick.
Yeah, yeah, it kept us. Yeah, it's like wow, that's like parenting 1000 there.
Yeah. Is that your dog
And
snoring?
if we were good, she'd get on the weekend. What?
Is that the
Yeah, my
dog
dog's
snoring?
snoring. It is. It is. That's the dog snoring. She's sitting behind me. Gertrude is snoring.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, she'll get really loud. She
Yeah.
tries to push me out of my seat, but wants to be warm. So she tries to sit behind me.
Yeah, yeah. So our dog's weird like that. She doesn't like to share. She'll like stretch out on the
She,
big couch.
this one's weird. She'll like go under the blankets with us. Like she likes to be under the blanket.
Yeah.
And then because she's brachiocephalic, I'm always afraid it's going to mess up her breathing.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, she obviously probably, I mean, if she was a human, we would all think she had sleep apnea.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I like wake up freaking out, like, is she breathing?
Yeah,
Oh,
that
geez.
would freak you out for sure.
Yeah.
Um so you said you got your gaming groups on hiatus now.
Yeah, for right now.
Have you guys considered going online?
I don't mind online. Some of us, well, like my core group, one guy's in Nebraska, one guy's in Georgia, and then the other three of us are in Ohio. Um, and then we have like a couple other people that we play with in Ohio, but those are kind of like if we do online games, who we usually play with. Um, but it's like four of us are essential workers.
Yeah.
So one's in healthcare, one I think he's like a butcher manager at a grocery store, and then the other one's a postal worker. So, and then I'm a manager, so I'm always on call. So it's trying to find like a time where we can all play together.
Yeah. Well, that is the hard thing about, adulting and gaming is
Yes.
scheduling. It's definitely shaped like the way we play. Like one of the things that's definitely influences like we don't track XP anymore. And one of the reasons was it just XP just felt punitive to people that had adult lives and just couldn't make every session or whatever. So we just
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
level up. Made it easier to keep everyone the same level.
We've kind of done it that way where we have like kind of like land markers in the
Uh,
progress. Like we did the jungle in episode or edition 5. What is that called?
Tomb of Annihilation.
Yes, yes, that. We never got to the tomb, but we were in the jungle for a really long time. But like different like larger encounters, we would get leveled up. Or just living. All of us but my husband's character died. Every single one of us. I think I had 4 characters. That's like the first time I've ever killed so many before.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
usually mine live, and the it's yeah, it's crazy. But like I had a really cool sorceress that I really liked. I spent a lot of time with her. She had already bonded with a couple of the other party members, and then dead. She fell backwards into a fire trap.
Oh
Like
no.
just gone. Yeah, yeah. She only had like 6 health points or something like that. It was wild.
I
Very
had
dainty little thing to go into the jungle. But I wanted it to work.
I had
But
one of my
yeah,
more recent characters die from a lava, falling in lava.
yeah. And then I had a really cool necromancer. Well, not like necromancer type book, kind of, yeah. His goal in life was to be a lich. Um, and he, I think, got pushed off the back of a cliff, like during an encounter.
Uh huh.
And he had like the little flying snake familiar.
Yeah.
So like another amazing character just dead. Like I played him like 2 rounds and I really liked him. Um, and then yeah, so it was interesting.
Yeah,
I got a lot of new classes that I'd never played that time.
I just recently had a character die in um playing Curse of Strahd, and and they were going to like bring the character back, and they want to bring a character back, but I don't know. I think I just rather play a new character.
Just try another one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and I always like to try something new.
yeah,
Like I don't ever play the same thing. I really like the Eldritch Knights. I love Rangers. And light clerics are kind of have been my favorites.
yeah.
Um, I have yet to do a druid or a monk. Arcane Trickster was fun. That one died as well pretty quickly. But yeah.
I want to play a light cleric. I've not played one yet. Something about playing a cleric that can throw fireballs.
Fireball. Yeah. Fireball is. And Jelena could swing some heavy hitting fireballs. It was fun.
So my new character in Curse of Strahd is Artemis Gluckenstein, first captain of the Bouncing Battle Brigade. He's a battlesmith artificer gnome. There's a 7 foot tall mechanical kangaroo, and he rides in the pouch.
Oh wow. That's cool.
I just like coming up with ridiculous things to introduce into the game.
Yeah.
So when he's introduced, like some of the players weren't sure whether they should address the gnome or the kangaroo.
Yeah. But it totally makes sense for a mechanical gnome to make a kangaroo so it doesn't have to walk.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I guess like in my head canon that exists nowhere else is there's actually a whole battalion of these guys
Oh,
somewhere.
neat.
And
Somewhere that nobody knew of
yeah, yeah.
that
And
just pop up.
well, I mean, the great thing about Ravenloft is like the mist can just whisk you away at any time, and
Yeah.
yeah, now you're there. And so the GM's like, "Oh, where's your character from?" I'm like, "I didn't think that far back."
He has a kangaroo that's mechanical. Does
Yeah,
it matter?
yeah. I mean, a
It's from a
very
gnome town.
very much the way I design characters is a lot of times is I'll just pick like one like element and quirk, and then like design around that, and then kind of build it out
Yeah.
as I go.
Yeah, that I like to think of my characters before I roll.
Yeah,
Um, like some of the ones that you have to have certain things for, like the ranger or like the eldritch knight or whatever, or like the cavalier. You kind of have to have those roles to do it usually. But I like to kind of have a backstory ready for that character.
yeah. I think most of the time anymore, I kind of like make up the backstory as I go, which is good and bad. Like I have fun with it, but the biggest problem is I don't take very good notes, so I make up stuff that
Oh
I'm
yeah.
most likely going to forget. The character that he
And then everybody's
replaced,
like, huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
the character that he replaced was Tunk, a Twilight cleric of Gubliet. That was raised by goblins. So I would always like insert like make up pieces of goblin lore and customs, but I didn't write them down. So it probably would have been
Right.
better if I did. So I could.
Well, they could be changing anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. Michael wants to know: does Artemis worship Gond? No, because I actually don't like the Forgotten Realms as a D&D setting. I like I've read a lot of novels, and I used to love reading the novels, but
I like Kryn, but
yeah, maybe
yeah.
someday we'll see that. It seems like there's some movement in that direction.
Yeah, yeah.
There was I saw there was a lawsuit filed, and then it was retracted, which means one, they're either going to go back and do something with it now, or they just got a pile of money. I don't know, or maybe the
Yeah.
rights back or something. But
Yeah,
so
I
we
don't
might
know.
see
I
something
like
with
the
that.
idea of the dragons and things, but that's I mean, when I finally get done with my book, people will be like, "Oh yeah, she really likes Dragonlance, obviously."
Yeah. Some
Dragons
inspiration
everywhere.
taken from there.
Yeah, just dragon confetti. But
Everywhere. I really like.
yeah, everywhere.
I like the. I read a lot of the Dragonlance novels, and I like the Draconians.
Yeah, they're neat. I like it when they go back in time, and you find out that Raceland just might be somebody else.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and that this whole time that, yeah, it's, I don't know. That was like a mind spin for me.
yeah.
Like I didn't like him until
Spoilers
that
from
book,
30
The
years
Time of the
ago for
Twins.
anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, some people might still read it. Yeah. I don't want to, because it was a big thing for me. And like my kids starting to read those books. So like when they, like, I really like Caramon. Caramon's one of
Yeah.
my favorite characters. But then as soon as that happened, I'm like, well, now I like Raceland. And I'm not supposed to like him, but I
So
really like him.
so honestly, I read like all the books except for like the twins. I don't know
They're
how that
good.
happened. It just did. And
Yeah.
one of my favorites was Flint the King, is where he
Yeah.
gets
Flint's
kidnapped
a
by
good one.
gully
Yeah.
dwarves. And then more recently there I think there's only two books. And one of them is called the Doom Brigade. I don't know if that's the first one or the second one.
I
And
don't think I've read that one.
it's about a like a settlement of draconians, and like
Oh.
they're not evil, they're not good, they're just like trying to survive. It's after everything happened. And like one of the cool things is like there's a settlement of dwarves nearby, and they would raid each other for supplies, but they didn't really like, and they would
Huh.
fight, but they didn't really kill each other. It was just like this ongoing thing where they, so that's kind of like how it like starts out, which is kind of cool.
Well, and
So
the whole thing about them turning to stone when they die, the Draconians,
yeah,
it's really neat. Like, I don't know. That was like my favorite thing about them.
yeah, it always sucked to fight them because depending on which type you're
Yeah.
fighting, something weird happens when you kill it, which is a pain and it's a pain in the
Yeah.
ass.
Yeah.
So Brian wants to know most overused word in fantasy writing or favorite.
Ooh, overused? Hmm. I don't know. Like, there are so many words that pop up frequently. Um, I like to try to use different words, like to replace everything, but then you also run into the effect of overdoing it that way. Um,
Yeah, when your writing becomes very obscure because you're using all these
yes.
words that don't get used there.
And I also, the way I write is very, it's weird because it sounds very modern. It doesn't sound like when a lot of fantasy writers uh, kind of push out their product, it sounds more like it's like way long ago in history. Um, which the perspective that I'm writing in, it is someone's perspective, but it could be yesterday
Mm-hmm.
rather than like a long, long time ago. And I hate when I start a book out and they go a long time ago. I'm just like, but yeah,
Have you
that would
read
be
any Bruce, Stephen Bruce?
no.
So he writes these like, I would say it's fantasy, and he's got this race of elves, but also like within them they're like, and they're not like your typical fantasy elves, and they call themselves something different, but it says it comes out that they're this world's elves. And he uses a lot of modern language as well as the idea that they're like mafia elves. and,
Oh,
and like one of the lines of the book that stands out to me was like, I'm gonna really mess you up, and I was like, that's very modern, but
yeah, yeah,
but but in the context of everything else in the story, it just worked so well.
yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah. Like
so
I like stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think there's a place for it for sure. Um, and he's written a lot. Vlad Taltos, I think, is the main character. I don't think that is the main character, and he's written like 20 some books about that character. So apparently there is a place for that style of writing.
Right? Yeah,
Um,
it's a little different. Dragonarians, is that right? Elves
Gregarian,
called Dragonarians.
I don't know. It's a made up
Dragonarians.
word. It could be either way.
Yeah, but that's kind of the fun part. Like, I'm actually working on like kind of putting a little bit of a language in.
Mm,
So, and it's fun. I'm having the only problem I'm having is I have a couple spots where I have to make up songs.
yeah.
So, because I've got one of the main characters is a bard, and he likes to tell old stories and lore by talking and singing about them. So, I really want to put some songs in there,
Yeah, that
but
sounds challenging.
I'm really terrible about putting words in songs.
Well, maybe
So,
you need to find a musician to collab with.
yeah, or like my husband's really good at just adding words in. So,
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know. It doesn't have to be long, but I just want it to kind of flow a bit for more immersion while they're reading it.
So does fashion take a large have a large role in your book?
It does. Of course it does. One of the characters I put in that article is in the book. Abdul, and he is all about fashion. I had a Patreon account or Patreon, whatever it's called, and there were a group of gals from like Indonesia and Southern Asian islands that were pretty much my audience.
Uh huh.
And they really liked that character. That was and the bad guy. Like, they loved those two characters, which is kind of weird because the bad guy, he's made to hate him from the get-go. So, but the other, like, Abdul, he was inspired from a character my husband played in a D&D campaign, and he was just such a cool character and memorable. Like, he would collect things that he thought was fashionable and had like a certain look he wanted to have, and would actually take the time and Mike repeat it out where he would get ready to start the adventure. So he would actually bathe and stuff while they were camping, and you would see him like doing his little beard and things, or like a mirror came up and he like snatched it, like that's what he wanted, was this mirror, and like all this loot, like good stuff he didn't care about. So it was interesting to see a character like that. In the campaign, he tragically died as fault of my characters, so that's something I really regret.
Oops.
But we went with it. And it was bad because a couple people were missing that day. Like, one person was missing and the other person was like out on an errand in the game. And I killed 2 party members. So, yeah.
How did you kill 2
And
party
the other person
members?
came back like, well, they were looking for someone's fiance that had died and had to go to a witch to recover her essence. But the witch had put her in an orb and basically turned her into a banshee in the orb. And my character, he was an Eldritch Knight, a noble, and he had just been cursed to like age like 10, 15 years. So he was freaking out about that because he had hair coming out of his nose and his ears. And he was not in a good place, and kind of like a spoiled rich brat, and a little dim-witted. So they're arguing about what to do to get this gal out of the orb, and no one like rolled on it or anything like that. And he just takes it and busts it. Like, this is how we're gonna do it, and
I
full
felt that
warrior
coming.
fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's a banshee.
so, yeah. because he had constitution of a god, pretty much, just with gear, and that was what he did. He was he had the shield thing and all that stuff. So a very, very hard to hit character. He was a meat shield. Fun meat shield, but meat shield. He was the only one in the bar that lived. He panicked because when the thing hit, something caught fire. And he didn't know what character to go to, or the bartender, or the other people. So he inevitably made the fire worse by accident by knocking over booze because he was extremely intoxicated, and ran out of the inn with the innkeeper's dead body.
Oh no.
So yeah, and everyone was just kind of shocked when it happened. But it was, yeah.
Sounds traumatic.
Because like most people, yeah.
But as always, are you even playing D&D if you don't burn down at least one tavern?
Right. Kill a couple people. It's fine.
It sounds like your games have high mortality rate in them.
It depends on the game. That specific campaign, I think we had lost out of 4 or 5 players. 1, 2, 3, just 4. Like that character, he made a past level 10.
Yeah.
He solo fought a demon at one point, but he's just so hard to hit again that he went again. They found a portal that they were supposed to go through, and everybody else was like, I think this is a trap. And he was like, screw it, I'm going in. And he went right in.
Oh, no, you're playing Leroy Jenkins.
Pretty much, yeah. A dumb Leroy Jenkins. And he tried to talk with the devil, and the devil was like, what are you doing? And finally everyone came to rescue him, though. So
yeah.
Eventually,
before they could end up with warlock levels.
Yeah, right. But he made it to 10. My husband's character in the jungle, wow. He made it a long time. He didn't die. We quit before he died, and he was the only one in that campaign that did not die. There were 2 of us, I think, that had 4 or 5 characters. So
decent amount.
It was, yeah. One person had 2. Well, 2 people had 2, and the other 2 of us had 4. I had 4, and the other person had 5.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard. It's not undoable, but it's harder to die in 5e than some of the previous editions.
Yeah,
it's very forgiving.
There was, what was the one? I think we played edition 1, and that was probably quite the most terrible death I've ever seen. I thought 4 characters was bad.
Yeah. It
was. No. I went through an entire family of elves.
Oh no.
As
you do.
The one he mentioned his sister or something, like he set up he tried to set up someone. He was a very pretty elf, and he was just an evil, nasty rogue. And this is one of Mike's favorite characters, Gary. And if a couple people are in here, Gary was an ass. And he basically sold his sister, one of them, and then his sister showed up to look for him because he died, and then she died, and then his other sister came up to look for them, and then they also all died.
Oh no, it's like dominoes, but with family members dying.
Yeah. They lasted a little bit, but yeah. I'm not necessarily known for making calculated decisions, but my gnome also made it all the way until we ended the campaign, so that was good. She was a 10. She was a ranger.
In first and second, I guess we played a lot in second, and that was brutal because we definitely played with GMs where, like, if you died, you started a new character level 1, regardless of what level the party was.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you can make it through the first adventure, you'd gain a lot of levels really fast. But that generally didn't happen. Like, the one time our GM was really super generous, and the characters were like, I think the characters were like 8th or 9th level, and he let them start at 3rd. So
Yeah. Oh, like I made a magic user and I was like, wow, this is rough. I feel like I'm just running away from everything.
You
Because I
had
wanted to get
to.
to level 3. Yeah. And then I get to level 3 and she took a fireball to the face. Her
Yeah.
familiar got toasted and that was it.
Oh, that was brutal too in the early editions when your familiar died.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Before
You're
third,
done.
you had lost permanent hit points.
Yeah. I think her familiar was an orange tabby cat named Peaches.
Oh no.
And
Poor
Peaches got
Peaches.
toasted. Yeah, Peaches got toasted.
Yeah, it was like so cool to have a familiar, but like if it died, you're probably gonna die.
The 5th edition ones are really neat, like the flying snake or the hand.
Yeah, okay. The
The
crawling
flying
claw.
snake was fun. Yeah. The flying snake was definitely the funnest. But I really liked Peaches. I was kind of sad that Peaches died. I hoped he made it, but the DM confirmed Peaches died.
Yeah, so I feel like in second edition, when your familiar got killed, like you permanently lost like twice the number of hit points that
Yeah,
the
you just
familiar
needed
had. I
to
don't remember if it was
jump off a
permanent or
cliff.
not. I just know it was like really brutal, and there was a good chance you were going to die if your familiar died.
Oh yeah, yeah. And what was crazy is her brother came back a zombie because he died in the same hallway, actually. So during all this, the thing that killed her resurrected her brother into a zombie
Oh yeah, that was
and
my last
had a
death.
melted.
I got
What?
killed by finger of death. So my
Oh,
character then became a zombie. So
yeah.
that then got fireballed by the bard to death.
Yeah. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, yeah,
I think mine was like a goblin sorcerer or something that got me. But
yeah. It
yeah, I mean,
was
I guess it would half and half then.
Baba LaSalle. What's the witch's name in Curse of Strahd? She's the one that got me with finger of death. And then she was in her flying skull, and then
Oh,
so the DM, I'm like, can I play the zombie to attack my party members? But the zombie, so the party was like all 6 levels, so the zombie was not very effective against the party. I tried grappling
no.
the barbarian to knock him off of the side of the flying skull, which did not work very well.
Barbarians can be like in 5th edition. Barbarians and rangers are like super. You don't want to mess with them. Like when you get to, I think it's like 5th or 6th level of a ranger, like mine just got stupid.
Yeah.
And I didn't like create her that way. It just happened. Um, just insane.
What type of ranger were you playing?
She had a snake, so I think she was a beastmaster. But she dual wielded.
Yeah.
And she was a gnome. And so she got the little person modifier to her dex, and then like some type of monster was her favorite enemy. And it just happened to be what we were fighting the most of. I didn't even know. So she just cut them down.
Yeah. I've played a few Beastmasters. I've actually played two of them that had giant crabs.
See, that's fun.
Yeah, my goblin
Crabs.
had Shelly, and their relationship was questionable. But being an archer and being small with a giant crab was nice because it was just like he would just stand on her back and it was like a mobile platform for archery. And then Sheldon was my half work Unga in those bastards game, which was we were all like half races and half siblings.
Oh, that's wild.
So like and we're like the impetus for the quest was we were searching for our dad. And like the ongoing joke, like our dad would sleep with anything. And we all had like this special like birthmark.
Oh no.
Yeah, and even my beast companion Sheldon had the mark, and then we're like, when we finally found him, we're
What?
like, how?
How did this happen?
Yeah. So apparently there was a polymorph spell and booze involved.
Oh, yeah. It's like one of my favorite elements of D&D has to be carousing.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I mean, you can get XP. You could lose everything too.
With or without the tables.
Even with the tables,
Yeah.
like even if it's just a table, I don't know. I think it's the gamble. Like, it's fun.
It is fun to see what you get, see what
Yeah.
comes up.
Well, and it's weird because I'm always hesitant to do it with the female characters I play, but the male characters, I'm like, let's do this.
Let's see what happens.
Like,
That sounds accurate. Just
yeah, or like the dwarves. My
yeah.
dwarves never do it. They never carouse. They don't gamble. They're good, upstanding dwarves. But my ranger gnome, she caroused a lot. She was a boozer. Um, and but all my other ones, they're like
Well,
Gary lost everything several times. Clothing, weapons, all of it. He got beat up. They find him out in the alley.
yeah.
Like, but then he just steal stuff, so he got gear back.
Yeah.
Or go backstab somebody who took it from him and get it back that way. But
Little murder hobo-ish.
yeah, murder hobo.
Yeah. Well, it goes that way sometimes.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. So I know you play Tunnel and Trolls. Are there other non D&D games that you play? RPGs?
I've tried Pathfinder once. There have been a couple like one day campaigns like that my brother's hosted, like of random games that he's found. One of his friends used to do a lot of booths at gaming conventions, and I forget the name of the booth that they were always at. And then my brother used to do like the live dungeon thing, like at the con in Indiana, where he was a monster. He was a
True Dungeon?
I think he was a the squid face thing.
Mind Flare?
Demi. Yeah, Mind Flare. Yeah. So
Done True Dungeon a couple times.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a little puzzle heavy for me. I gotta get bored with puzzles quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have much of an attention span.
Yeah, but he's brought like a lot of different, like just one-time stuff.
Yeah.
That he'll be like, let's try this. I'm like, okay.
Nah, I mean,
have
that's
a Sailor
great.
Moon book for RP. I can't find anybody to play with me though.
What is it?
It's an RP Sailor Moon game. Like,
Oh, okay, yeah.
kind of like D&D rules for Sailor Moon. My husband won't play with me though.
No.
No.
Why not?
I could probably get my cousin to, but
there's
can't get players.
So we had a guest on, and she ran, I forget the name of the game, but it's like you all play princesses, and she ran it for like all these like older industry guys for RPGs, and they all played as princesses for like a one shot in a stream game. So
that's fun though. We have. Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. So your husband could play.
Yeah, he could. He just doesn't want to. We have. I always get the name right. No, thank you, evil. I think is what it's called, and I want to get it online so I can run a little kids group.
Oh yeah.
Because that's all like you do everything by adjectives.
Yeah, like, Ted has ran that for his family.
Yeah,
and I think it's great the way they do that, and it's the way the resource management works in that game. I thought it was brilliant the way they just added the chits, and like it's, even with little kids, even if they're not particularly good with math yet, they can understand like their
Right.
piles shrinking or growing.
Yeah. Well,
So
and you can play it. It's got levels of complexity.
yeah.
Yeah, Mike, maybe we should do a princess stream.
See,
You
there we
get good
go.
internet.
We've peer
Yeah,
pressured Mike into it.
right? He's really great at RPing. He would RP a princess very well.
On that note, we were up on the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
No, it's been fun.
Well,
I like D&D a lot, so.
thanks for coming on and chatting with me, Jezi. And until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.